Now I don't know about you, but watching 9 separate videos just to learn all that has changed since the Maxwell Rework beta doesn't sound all that enticing. So then, with the update officially out now of course, it's time for our own encore. Let us talk everything new in the Puppet Masters refresh, yes. And we'll start with the basics. The Codex Umbra is no longer a crafting station even if it has retained its animations. Instead, this thing is now a full-blown spell book with 4 unique shadow spells to its name, all accessible through its very own spell wheel. Now, all spells are going to drain the codex by 5% each. The spells that summon actual minions will take away 30% of our maximum sanities, and both trap spells are going to cost an instant 15 sanity per cast. Now the former is eventually going to lead to refueling the codex by 25% each nightmare fuel used, while the others will have to be corrected by you personally, or just going to correct themselves over time. But what exactly do these spells actually entail, you ask? Well, Shadow Sneak is a fear trap of sorts for most mobs that are not boss's mind, so don't go wasting your summons. If used properly, however, the spell should not only panic mobs for roughly 15 seconds, it will also temporarily slow them down to boot, making for some easy escapes. You can tell it's working due to some new visuals seen here on these pigs, but in case you haven't seen any of the other videos, note too how Shadow Sneak can also transform rabbits into beardlings, bunnymen into beard lords, and Splue monkeys into shadow Splue monkeys at will. All these nightmare mobs will remain as such for a full day too, so be sure to take advantage, as all 3 will now drop guaranteed nightmare fuel too. Plus, there's even a slight chance at 2 fuel per kill as well. It's very nice, but still very poorly named. To continue though, spell number 2 is Shadow Prison, and while it too underwent many changes over them hotfixes, it is now in a pretty simple spot. All bosses locked away inside the thing will be freed in 16 seconds if not being damaged by us, our shadow minions, or other players. But if that is indeed the case, the cages are gonna rumble and fade away in but 8 seconds instead. Yeah, not great in most day-to-day scenarios. Normal mobs, on the other hand, will serve their sentence in 24 seconds if not engaged in combat, and yup, you guessed it, that timer is gonna half if they are. Make notes and use this thing strategically now, as it's not really a spammable thing anymore. These next 2 spells, however, are still very spammy, starting with the Shadow Servants. First and foremost, all Shadow Servants will last for half a day unless otherwise killed by something or us, so be prepared for that, as let's remember now, they don't actually follow us anymore. Instead, they will patrol the area that they were summoned in and gather most anything, as even 1 minion can now fulfill most jobs. And as an added bonus, they even attempt to pick up entire stacks of loot before bringing it all to us to boot. As long as we're not in combat, that is. They also received a long list of things to not pick up throughout the month, but for the most part, they will do pretty much anything you ask of them, even when you're off screen. They won't have anyone to give anything to, however, so I would expect some limitations if you're not around to clear their cache, if you catch my drift. They're not a fan of picking if you're not nearby. But before we move on, also note how all minions can now not only walk on water to boot, but can number in the half dozens if you don't mind losing your mind for a time. My advice though, stick to 5 servants or duelists at one time. And speaking of them duelists, let us fully break down all their nonsense, yes. By default, all shadow duelists will deal 20 damage per hit and 30 damage per lunge. Start equipping some shadow gear, however, and things get interesting. Tier 1 gear consists of all magical staves, every amulet, the one-man band, Antlion's new Turf Razor helm, and the Premier Gardenier hat, all of which will add an additional 4 damage per hit to all of our minions, meaning duelists will now deal 24 to 36 damage instead. Stack some of those tier 1 items though, and you can have them dealing 32 to 48 damage overall instead. Tier 2 and all of its shadow gear is next, and everything you see before you will now be adding 8 damage to our minions when held or worn. This means that even just one piece of tier 2 gear will see us dealing 28 to 42 damage per minion, while a fully geared Tier 2 Maxwell can enjoy 44 to 66 damage per duelist. Tier 3 items, them being the Bone Helm and Armor Alone Mind, add 12 damage to our guys, meaning they will be able to deal 32 to 48 damage with but one of these things equipped, and 44 to 66 with both. Now that's not as accessible as a full set of Tier 2 stuff, mind, but if you've got Tier 3 covered, you also have the only item in Tier 4, so please bear with me here. The Thurple adds 16 damage to every minion, so while it alone is going to deal 36 to 54 damage per hit and lunge, when combined with the Tier 3 items, we are going to reach a maximum damage output of 60 to 90 per duelist overall. So make notes. And yes, the whole proximity thing that Clay added way back at the start of the beta actually still matters, but now it's far less noticeable, honestly, especially if you are wearing shadow gear. In short, duelists will default to 20 damage per if you stray too far away from combat. Oh, but before I forget, examining and or equipping a certain gear is actually going to go a long way in identifying what specific gear will actually be impacting the duelist if you don't remember what you've just seen. But that said, a simple glance towards your equipment slots themselves is going to do so even better, as if you see a bunch of particles, then your duelists are being boosted. But to truly end the day today comes Maxwell's 2 new crafts. The surprisingly cheap Magician's Hat here, that's a portable storage that sits atop our noggins now, that actually boasts more slots than a typical chest, mind, and the Magician's chest itself. Now this guy is definitely more expensive at 9 nightmare fuel and the rest of it. However, 2 will offer 3 additional slots over any normal chest, and it grants access to the Maxwell exclusive Shadow Dimensional storage mechanic. Now it's only exclusive due to the Magician's Hat being limited to only Maxwell, mind, as all other players can access this storage via the chest itself and or Shadow Chester, but still, it is a new mechanic that this rework introduced. It's all linked, so use it wisely. But hold up, I forgot about this one teensy tiny little tidbit that they added ages ago. One last note should be the lack of any sanity drain when wielding a dark sword or wearing knight armor as Maxwell now. So have fun. And there you have it, everyone. A full and complete summary of the official Maxwell Rework update now that it's out of beta. It has been reshaped many times over, and while I still don't exactly feel like a quote-unquote puppet master, I will say that the few new tricks he's got up his sleeve are enough for now. Thanks for watching, folks. Well wishes to all. Expect a reaction to his fantastic animation soon, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.